Lagos, former capital of Nigeria, does not only have the potential to be Africa's richest city, but it also has the same to be like Singapore or one of the richest cities in the world. The coastal city has striking similarities, including history with Singapore. But why has Singapore left it behind? A good deal of Lagosians may not realize this, but they could have been one of the richest cities in the world, sitting within the top 5 position. Hi, my name is Emmanuel Obarwa. I run the number one city development platform in Nigeria. This platform has a singular vision, which is to develop to the point where I can orchestrate the development of contemporary livable cities in Nigeria and elsewhere. Kindly join the family by subscribing or following, and kindly like and share. Make sure to share. Thank you. To understand the magnitude of the heights Lagos could have attained, it is important to touch on the loftiness of Singapore as well as its similarities with Lagos. Singapore is a futuristic, ultra-clean celebrity city-state and by far one of the best planned and maintained cities in the world. The Southeast Asian city-state is the third richest city in the globe according to Insider Monkey, and according to Helen Global, it has the fourth largest base of US dollars millionaires on earth, boasting over 244,000 millionaires. As a matter of fact, the little country with less than 6 million residents has over 2 times the GDP of Nigeria in 2024, managing a little over 225 billion US dollars. This is particularly interesting as Nigeria has over 227 million residents. That said, let's look at the similarities of both cities and it will become clear that Lagos has really lagged behind, which is simply sad. Both Singapore and Lagos are coastal cities along important trading routes, and both were also colonies of the British Empire. And while Singapore was under the British longer, starting in 1819 and only gaining independence in 1963, Lagos, with its host country Nigeria, gained independence earlier in 1960. Singapore and Lagos are also tropical cities, experiencing stable and favorable weather year-round. And unlike many other cities, they have very small areas of land and as a result are almost built up. To be specific, Singapore's land area is a little over 700 square kilometers, while that of Lagos is a little over 3,300 square kilometers. Further, both domains are not big on possession of natural resources. At this point, it is important to emphasize the status of both entities. While Lagos is a state within a country, Singapore is a country of its own. Nonetheless, Lagos has the power to make laws and to execute them. Back to Lagos and Singapore. Both domains have only one city existing within themselves. It's similar to Australia being a country and a continent at the same time. Lagos had an added advantage of being the capital city of Nigeria since 1914, only ending this run after 77 years in 1991. Moreover, in the 1950s and 1960s, Singapore faced an acute unemployment levels and housing shortage. The majority of its citizens lived in crowded squatter settlements and slums with poor sanitation. They also lacked proper infrastructure and adequate water supply. So, during this time, the Southeast Asian city was poor, undeveloped, and didn't have a better situation than Lagos. But how did it transform its economy to an advanced one, raising its GDP to 525 billion US dollars when Lagos is still at 25 billion US dollars, a mere fraction of Singapore's GDP? After its independence from the British Empire in 1963, it integrated with Malaysia but left in 1965. At this time, they were in a deplorable state. They lacked employment, proper infrastructure, housing, sanitation, and adequate water supply, among other things. To eradicate poverty, the government of the Garden City pursued an aggressive policy of economic growth based primarily on industrialization. But they couldn't do it by themselves. Hence, they opened up their economy, cutting investors from developed countries and convincing multinational corporations to manufacture in their country. In other words, Singapore embraced globalization and a free market policy. Another significant factor to the development of Singapore is its leadership style. Singapore's leadership is autocratic. In other words, the leadership possesses and utilizes unlimited power. For example, penalties for corruption are harsh and could result in death depending on degree. Also, in order to eradicate housing shortage, the government of Singapore under Lee Kuan Yew forced private landowners to sell their land to the government below market rates under the Land Acquisition Act. Given its objectives and leadership style, Singapore was able to create an environment that was safe, stable, corruption free, and low in taxation. And with foreigners being able to buy 100% of a company in the country, it became very appealing to international investors. But this meant the citizens of the country had to forfeit a large measure of their freedom. As the country's efforts brought in results, they began focusing on developing their human resources. The country set up many technical schools and paid international corporations to train their unskilled workers in information technology, petrochemicals, and electronics. The strategy of having multinationals educate their workforce paid great dividends for the country. Also, over the period of 1963 to 1975, Singapore received 14 loans from the World Bank. The first 10 were exclusively in the infrastructure sector and included water supply, port expansion, sewage, power, and telecommunications. Today, Singapore is a high income economy with strong investments in infrastructure, education, healthcare, and public services. The city state is among the world's most competitive economies. Since the 1960s, they've moved from simple economic activities to more high value ones such as crude oil refining, wafer fabrication, logistics, biotech research, pharmaceuticals, integrated circuit design, and aerospace engineering. There are currently over 3,000 multinational corporations operating in the country, accounting for more than two-thirds of its manufacturing output and direct export sales. Some multinational corporations having a plant in the country include GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer, and Merck and Co. Singapore has 100% urbanization rate and has approximately 90% home ownership rate in 2023. Life expectancy is approximately 84 years, being the third highest in the world. Its average internet speed is over 277 Mbps, which is one of the highest in the world. Singapore's globalized state has created for it a new type of reality where their citizens are equipped to be able to compete with experts from anywhere in the world. In the most recent World Bank Human Capital Index, Singapore for sure ranked as the best in the world in human capital development. As a city, Singapore was also meticulously planned for livability, sustainability, and agility and was elegantly developed. In short, Singapore is an impeccable city to live, work, and play. It's little wonder its tourism sector attracts over 10 million visitors annually. The country now has the world's busiest transshipment port, surpassing Hong Kong and Rotterdam. In terms of total cargo tonnage handled, it has become the world's second busiest, only behind the port of Shanghai. No wonder they've been able to rapidly raise their per capita GDP from less than 320 US dollars in the 1960s to 88,000 US dollars in 2024. And no wonder just one housing property in the city could cost as much as 230 million US dollars. Oh my God. I am talking about none other than the good class bungalow at number 33 Nassim Road. In summary, Lagos once had a better socio-economic status than Singapore. Both domains share a lot of similarities, with Lagos having more opportunities at the beginning. Specifically, Lagos was the capital of a much bigger country which has the wealth of many high value natural resources, including crude oil, gold, and iron ore. Also, the entire country and even beyond mostly use its seaports. However, Singapore, by sheer determination and leadership acumen, has forged into the future while Lagos is still not developed. But it can still turn things around. Afrobeats, the newest pop music, the most trending music in the world presently, has emerged out of Lagos. The most valuable unicorn in Africa has also emerged out of the African largest city. Also, the government of Lagos was able to acquire and make operational trains that couldn't be used in Wisconsin in the United States. Lagos was also able to attract and now plays host to one of the largest crude oil refineries in the world. The Africa's largest refinery is so advanced it has forced some European refineries to close up. With a firm decision and commensurate determination, like Singapore, Lagos can forge its path onto development and onto the league of the richest cities in the world, and certainly onto the position of Africa's richest city. However, it doesn't have to succeed to see this be. My Lagos people, how are they?
Nobody, no group of men have got the will, have got the capacity to do more for this country.
You see, the whole of my adult life,
This is my country. This is my life. This is my people. You will trample over us, over our dead bodies. We dug our toes in, we built a nation.
This was a mud flat, swamp. Today, this is a modern city. 10 years from now, this will be a metropolis. Never fear.